these three panelists. They'll be sharing with us a lot about what the rugby union is doing, and also some things that the head coach himself is sharing with the coach and developing them. So as you all know, Coach as leader is one of our taglines in Coach SG. Many of us must realize that as a coach, we are a leader and we have to be the leader on the field and off the field. So just some housekeeping matters. Please mute your mic when you're not talking. Switch on your video if you can. The session format will be, we'll be asking the current situation of what's happening in Singapore Rugby Union, and then we will have the sharing from Simon and Charlie, and then we'll open the floor to questions. Questions can be posted on the chat room. We'll be sieving through the chat questions, and we'll be trying to answer all of them at the end of the sharing. So today we have Simon Mannix, who's a head coach of all Singapore Rugby national team. He's a former All Blacks legend and has won accolades for his work developing rugby over the last 13 years in the top leagues in Europe. In just his first season, in charge of French league side Chow, he guided them from the second division to the top 14. He believes that Singapore rugby has potential to grow. Next, we have the Singapore General Manager Marc Chow. He's a close friend of mine. Used to play rugby together. He was a former national team captain. He has represented the Singapore 15th team on 12 occasions, including 2 as captain. And I'm sure everybody knows who he is if you are from Singapore. Next, we have Charlie Brown, who is the current rugby development manager, a former PE teacher. Charlie has a strong background in education and sports development. So I'm sure everybody has seen him on as a referee also on the world stage. So we have really 3 distinguished guests from the Singapore Rugby Union to share with us today. Sorry, lagging. So again, any questions, please post your questions on Zoom or Facebook Live in the chat room, and we will try to answer them at the last 10 to 15 minutes. So without further ado, let's just start with a check-in with Marc Chow.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for joining us today. How are you? How have you been coping?
Yeah, fine. Thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having us on.
No, our pleasure. So just to give a bit of context, we realized that there are certain restrictions, especially for teams that sports teams, that are territorial based or tactical based, and we understand that there are very unique restrictions that may make coaching a bit harder. That's why we have decided to call you guys up. And also, what is so noteworthy is your best practices of how you guys have managed to stay ahead of the curve and, create a unique space and training paradigm within these restricted times. So that is why we think that inviting you could actually benefit other team-related NSAs and sports. So to cut a long story short, could we find out a bit more about the current and most immediate restrictions that have impacted your sport and the rugby community? And most importantly, we really want to know about what SRU has been doing to cope with this, and what are your new realignment strategies?
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Sham. Well, basically, the shutdown of sports facilities and the circuit breaker has impeded our training on the field, but also on the gym and the track. So not just the field training stuff. Games and competitions have also not been allowed to continue, so that has been difficult for us. The school coaches have been affected as well because schools have, reduced trainings and whatnot. Well, thankfully, MOE have came in with some initiatives there, and also the SRU will be going to start working with these coaches to help them tide over this period. The high performance team has had to recalibrate and re-strategize on how to keep the players and coaches engaged and training during this period. And I think Simon will share a little bit more about that later. I think changes, as you all know, are always difficult. We put in place a high performance team headed by Simon that demands a high level of commitment, almost on par of that to professional teams. But in doing so, obviously, there were some feathers that were ruffled. Not everyone was on board. But the SRU, we are serious about what we do. We are serious about making things work. We believe that we are moving in the right direction and we are pushing ahead. When I came into the SRU, one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted the high performance teams to adopt technology and be more quantitative about the way they train and of course the team selection. Simon, coming from a professional background, is really well versed with this. And when the COVID-19 situation occurred, it actually accelerated our adoption of these systems for video analysis and for player tracking. And we found that we could still do a lot of work with both the players and coaches from a technical and physical point of view. So that has been good for us. And well, of course, we will still remain open to those who may not necessarily believe in what we do yet. And we continue to remain as accessible as possible to everyone.
Thanks, Daniel. Yes, exactly. Good to know that you guys are trying to be as inclusive as possible. And what catches our attention is your intention to make things more data-based, more objective, and sort of science-based that will benefit the playing community and allow the coach to make more informed, technical and sound decisions. Excellent answers from you, Daniel. Off the top of your head, could you, what are some of the steps that players, coaches, and parents can do during this phase 1 and phase 2 that may be quite limiting in order to stay involved with their game so that they don't lose touch from a tactical or technical point of view?
Yeah, I think the trend really is into digitalization, and I think players can definitely still keep fit during this period, despite the access to gyms. There's still a lot that can be done, and there are many online resources that are available to them. So, online resources are widely available, I think from schools, clubs, even the SRU, if you need any. For us, I think a real measure of our success is if we can eventually get the community and school coaches to start leveraging on such systems like video analysis to coach. We are really trying to build this within the rugby ecosystem, and we are starting with the club head coaches first.
That's a great idea. So I think we are really trying to look for a cultural shift, to move ahead and change the way in which we analyze games and coach in general, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So before, instead of wasting more time, I understand that Simon has a very elaborate and exciting presentation for us. Thanks so much for your responses, Daniel, Marc, and we'll hear from you later. Simon, take it away.
Hi, good morning. Many thanks. Thanks for having us on. As Daniel said, it's probably the first opportunity for us to express ourselves in the wider sporting community in Singapore, and certainly through challenging times. But through these challenging times, probably has allowed us to have a look at what we were doing and maybe shift our focus a little bit more. And so the idea today is we're just going to talk a little bit around how we're developing performance using analysis in the wider rugby community, not only just at the top level, national players or the premiership coaches, but also how that drifts down into the refereeing community and also the junior rugby community as well, which Charlie will touch on those things a little bit later. So I'll just tab on to the first slide there for me. Just upon my arrival here, when I arrived in Singapore back in November, it was it's allowed me, gave me time to analyse and just to have a look and absorb the local rugby community and see basically how it functioned. And my first impressions were, I've got to say, were way less than what I expected. The strength and conditioning work to me was a massive factor that I don't think had really been touched on, and a program hadn't been put in place. So this allowed me to shape my initial thinkings around getting hold of the top athletes, if you like, in Singapore, both female and male, and creating a group and try to create, well, I've got up here a learning environment, but a semi-pro environment and expose the athletes to what professional rugby players, which I've been involved with in 13 years, the sort of things that they would have, what their days, what their weeks would look like in terms of preparing for a game. So we wanted to create a group that was above the rest, that was allowed them to have individual personalized training plans in terms of strength and conditioning, because I saw this as a must need to improve, but also to improve the technical and tactical work, which I felt the technical work was at a reasonably poor level. So with that in mind, it was a case of, first of all, I thought, right, let me attack the top end of players. So we tried selecting a group of 40, and straight away I was hit with all the problems that every Singapore coach, now I've discovered since, is confronted with, and that is players not showing up to training, a lot of work commitments and everything else. Obviously, all this changes with COVID. So now remote training, we've got the players, and we've had a really good buy-in, but we did manage to get about 6 to 8 weeks of really good work in with this group. But what was interesting was at the same time, I was trying to develop a rapport with the coaches. And I think at our first coaches meeting we had 6 out of about 16 people who were invited show up. So that sets off alarm bells straight away, that everyone was sort of existing in their own little bubble, if you like, looking after what their interests were, and not seeing the greater picture, which is just to improve the game of rugby, that certainly we're all very passionate about. And if we manage to improve it across the board, we'll see an improvement for the national team, which I'm overseeing. But firstly, we want to see an improvement across the board to produce better athletes, better skilled, with a good understanding of the game. So when we just before we went into our first confinement period here, we had a coaches meeting online, and I sort of gave across my views about where we're at the end of the season, what are we going to do to create this learning environment that we're talking about, with my experience and my resources capable to help the local coaches. So the first thing we got really into was about studying the game and not watching it. And I was wanting to understand where the coaches were at with their understanding on the game. If you just tab on to the next one there, please. And what I really wanted to impart on everybody who in the senior coaching community, that analysis and good analysis is just as important as training. Now, this is a massive shift for people because they hadn't been exposed to quality images. We would, in 13 years of coaching professionally, every training run would be filmed, everything was filmed. Games would be filmed, obviously studied, analysed. As coaches, we'd spend hours and hours and hours trawling through images to find what was relevant and what was pertinent to our performances and what we could use to improve our performances. How are we going to educate the players? So now my job in the last 8-week period has been, how can I improve the coaches? And that is really trying to introduce them just to, one, study the game. Don't watch it as a spectator. 2, is to get that point across, and analysis is just so important. The next one is probably the one which applies across the board to absolutely everybody. Let's tab on. Keep it simple. Let's not overcomplicate things. We don't want paralysis by analysis either. But the idea of taking simple messages and how we can put those into our game here in Singapore. And then it leads to the last one, which I'll delve into a little bit later on here. I want you to learn, improve, reflect on it, and then plan. So if I show you, I'll just share my screen now, and sorry if there's any gremlins with this, but does that look all right? Cool. Okay, so this was the image the year before I arrived on what video meant, how video and how games were filmed in Singapore. And when I look at these images after years and years and years of experience, there's not a lot I can take out of this. Filming at ground level, the images just aren't not conducive to giving a positive messages back to the player as to how we can help them here. And as you'll see, it's pretty ropey at best. And so we had the challenge coming on here. And this is an example here of when I first arrived, that we'd have our cameraman up on top of containers here at Dempsey Field there, trying to get a little bit of height, just trying to get something improved in our images. Okay, and so that there is one of the first challenges. Then we managed to find ourselves a telescopic pole, which has been a game changer for us in terms of the quality of images we're able to record. And if I just show you what that looks like now. So if we just, so then with the great work out of the competitions committee manager at the SRU, Craig Norwood, about getting me access and getting the camera guys access into places where we can film from. Here we are at Turf City, okay? While we're not on the halfway line or anything, what we have, guys, we're at great height to start filming from, okay? And then probably what we have done then is film with 2 cameras. And this, from an analytical viewpoint, is vital, as it allows us to study what's going on in the backfield and everything else. So relative to our sport of rugby, this helps an awful lot in terms of analysis, preparation, and things. So that was Turf City 1 at the Padang. Of course, very far now with our telescopic camera, we're starting to get good images here, and we're starting to be able to film, getting decent shots here to allow good analysis to continue. But better than that, again, and I have to, big hats off to Craig here to get us access up onto the museum here to allow us to film from the top of the museum. And you'll see those images there purely from a coaching and analysis viewpoint. This is outstanding for us, and messages and pictures that you won't see on the ground, but certainly from this incredible height and this great camera angle, we can really develop our players and help them understand a lot more. But before we develop the players, it's about developing the coaches as well. And so if I get on to the next one here, this is at Turf City number 2. Again, this ability to have these tight angles, these wide angles, allows us, again, just to get a much better picture. We can come in close, see what's going on there. Okay. And then take it wide and see what's happening there. So what we have developed is a decent range of now camera positions, 2 cameras filming each game. And this is really, so we're able to produce a product now that will help benefit the coaches. So now the challenge for me is, how am I going to try and educate the coaches? Finally, we've got good game images, okay? We've got no training images as yet, okay? We are filming the national group, but now it's got to be about developing and helping the coaches understand. I used this image just before, and I wanted to challenge the coaches to start watching rugby without watching the ball. And that's why when I say about studying the game, we're not going to watch the ball. So with this type of camera, it all looks very good. The play moves nicely and we watch the ball. But there's not a lot that we can maybe see out of this. And when we come now and we watch the game, as I say, we're going to watch it through a different pair of eyes now. Sorry, I'll get that on the wide camera. And now we're watching on the wide camera, and all of a sudden space is opening up. We're seeing a lot more different things about where we could possibly be playing the game, where we could be exploiting the weakness in the opposition, and even, the weaknesses in our game as well. Obviously, we're trying to balance always. We're going to improve our performance. So as a coach, if you're on the sideline, you're potentially not seeing this guy here I've circled in yellow, who's actually in front of the ball and is not in the game, because of course in rugby, the ball has got to travel backwards. We've got to be behind the ball. So with to look at rugby through a different set of eyes, this will hopefully, and giving the images, backing it up with images, this is important that the coaches now, 1, they have access to these images, and 2, now we need to give them support and using the correct software and the right platforms that will allow them to analyze and study. And we've been in Europe, where I was coaching professionally for 13 years, Huddle Sports Code is the way in front as a leader in terms of sports analytical software, and certainly now we're starting to use it here in Singapore. So that's it's going to be a bit of a game changer for us. But like all analysis, it depends on the quality of the images that we get it back to. Can we just put up the second slide there for me, please? I'll stop that screen share. So for the coaches, and would be meet is the idea was that I wanted one of the coaches to present every week, and so he would choose the area of the game that he wanted to present on. He'd choose maybe the teams that he'd like to have a look on, and then Sports Code would provide him with a license that allowed him to really go into in-depth analysis, or maybe looking at 8 or 9, even 10 games of what's going on. And then it allowed him to clip his own videos, okay, go through all these questions, you know, okay, study the images, improve, what can we do better? Then the next one about reflecting on how can we apply this within Singapore rugby? How can I apply this into my own team? And then finally, putting this into action. Okay, so that's sort of the process we went through with the coaches and have been going through. So if I just grab the screen back again. And that is this one. And so an example of this, when I talk about, so we look at the highest end of the game, okay? And I might be from New Zealand, but it doesn't make me a huge fan of New Zealand rugby, although it's actually quite good. And they have a pretty good grasp on how to play the game. So there's an awful lot of lessons we can take out of watching New Zealand. What we have here, Hurricanes against the Blues. But what we do have is if I can show you there on that screen, this is high-end analysis, high-end ability to analyze the game with having 4 different camera angles. It's, again, this is what, you know, we're not going to get to 4 in Singapore. I'm delighted with the 2 that we have got, but just what a difference it makes to your coaching and to your understanding when you can look at the scrum from wide, you can look at how the backs are set up and all the tactical side of it. We can have a look end on, and we can really start to study the game through a different set of glasses, okay? If I just let that image run through, okay, and we can bounce that back, get to the wide angle, see where the players are, have a look at the circulation of the players. We go back to end on, see that we're all doing the right things. And when you watch images like that, rugby becomes very easy, but it becomes very easy to coach, a lot easier to coach. And so this was a challenge. Our challenge was to try provide those sorts of images, give the guys the right software, as I said, the Huddle Sports Code package, which has been outstanding, and get the players, get the coaches learning, and then apply it to our rugby. And so an example from our, and just let me know, just give me a thumbs up there if this volume comes across. This is from one of our webinars where we've got Sue, who's been coaching the Sevens team, Singapore Sevens, and also involved with SCC. When he ran one of the webinars, just let me know if this comes across with the volume. No volume on that? No, okay. No, that's no good. Okay, I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so we'd have, I'll talk over it, okay, but we'd have the coaches, Sue will identify the key areas here, okay, and then we'll be having, again, he'll say what the opportunities are available and exploiting how to exploit this opportunity using rugby, using our images. So what this did was exchange, as it created a lot of chat amongst the coaches. What do you think? How do you deal with it at your club? And then we're trying to keep it, always trying to bring it back to our local rugby as well and our local community. And these ones here is how we apply this into our training drills. So I'll just click out of that because I'm sure you prefer to hear Sue's voice talking about things and not me. So those there are part of the elite training group ones there. And then what we can take from that is, again, looking at the highest level, okay, is understanding, okay, well, it's all great and good. We're looking at the top end of world rugby, but can we apply it to our game? And if we're going to take exercises, and I have over the years have developed a wealth, a library of videos from all the trainings. As I say, everything's filmed. These ones from a drone angle, you'll see here. And we'll just look at a passing race being run by the Hurricanes here, and we'll just let that run through, understanding the key principles involved of what they're trying to do, the what and the why. Okay. And then applying it with our own athletes. But it's the key to these skill drills is understanding the drill and understanding the what and the why. So this was something I really had to hammer on and work with the coaches about why we're running things. And here, running inside at the OCBC arena, which is just great access for us to be able to train inside early in the mornings, be it maybe too early, but it still provides us incredible access. And going through doing the simple things well is really what we're looking about, and trying to take what we can out of the professional game and build those into our sessions. So what that could look like, again, I'm just going to bounce out of this one. When I talk about building a training run, and one thing I really wanted to educate our coaches with and get them to understand is that to follow the process. Well, I'm looking at a process of A, B, C, D, just to simplify it. D's the goal, A is our starting point. I don't ever want us forgetting B and C. So I really want things done, but the most basic skill broken down, and then just build on it every single time. We can add layers on afterwards, but we've always got to respect this process, A, B, C, D, and we can't jump steps. And what I'll show you here, I'll tab on through about 9 clips of how one of the top professional teams in the world, and you'll see what they're doing, just slowly, it'll just one image, but maybe they're going to repeat every exercise, every one image you've seen, they'll probably repeated it 30 times during that day. So they're repeating the very basic skills to build over a 10-day period. And so what it looks like here is you've got 3 players just running onto the ball. Now that looks all very simple, but that was done 30 times. Then slowly, as it goes on to the next, the players are on the ground. So now we've got 2 defenders. They just keep building and adding layers onto now filming from ground level, showing that this can be done at all levels, okay, just with an iPad. And again, 3 players doing the very basic things, but doing it well. Now, again, another change, players coming from a different angle, and again, being filmed at ground level. So this sort of stuff's available to all of us, okay? Okay, now we've built up. We're going 3 against 3. I don't want to get into technical stuff here, but I just pretty sure you can understand the progression about what we're talking about. And we're still working on one facet of the game. Now those 3 players are joined by a few more players. So we're starting to grow within the week. Okay, building, just adding layers. But again, wanting to get to the end, not wanting to go too quickly. Have you got the drone image here? You got that filmed? This is something, okay, you look at this as luxury, but luxury images, I totally accept that, okay? But coaching tools, being able to film with phones, being able to film with iPads, standalone cameras, they work fine, okay? The drone's something exceptional. It gives you another look and another way to look, analyze, and study the skill that you're trying to coach. And we just keep seeing the same thing, as I say, I know I'm banging on about the same message here, this A, B, C, D, and now we build it into pretty much 15, obviously full team now, full team practice, and they've just added and built. So I wanted our coaches to go away with that understanding that this can be applied at every single level of the game, that A, B, C, D, and just repeating the basics extremely well is the basis of rugby, because what sets the very best from the good is doing the basics very well over and over again. And I think probably it's a good time for me just to get Charlie to jump in here. Charlie, just and let him give you his idea on how he's able to sort of follow on some of the work we've been doing here. Charlie, if I let you take it over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Simon, and good morning, everybody. I think the key thing for us as a union to look back on is that while we're going through a very difficult period, that as a union, we saw that there are a lot of opportunities for us to look at how we're going to do things when we get back together. And having everything stopped, as Simon mentioned, really gave us an opportunity to look back and see what we've been doing so far and how we can do it better in the future. So without going into too much detail beyond what Simon's said, what we did was we reached out to all of our junior rugby clubs and started working with their coaches, perhaps not so much on an in-depth level, but an opportunity to look at the skill development model of what skills we are reinforcing as players come through the pathway, and providing an opportunity for our athletes to have the best possible coaching that eventually leads up to potentially representing Singapore at national team level. So the images, so the slides that you're seeing at the moment is effectively the same message that we're trying to work with our junior rugby community. And as Simon had mentioned earlier, it's about bringing people together, creating community, and talking about how we are developing our skills and our athletes across the entire region. On top of that, the athlete that's often forgotten about is the referee. Being a referee myself, I know that we tend to be last on the list, but as a union, we recognize how important the referees are within our rugby community. And again, another opportunity that we've taken through access to Huddle and Sports Code is to allow access for referees to look at these games and provide them an opportunity to reflect on their own performances, how they layer on top of the skill development work, the technical and tactical aspects that is being approached with the coaches, and starting to help our referees, our coaches, and our athletes establish some form of synergy in working together with the ultimate goal of improving the sport in Singapore. So yeah, as I said, a much more diluted version at community level. I'm sure a lot of coaches out there would be thinking that it's going to be very difficult for them to set up a video platform to look at their training sessions. But as Simon mentioned, it's quite easy to achieve with an iPad or with an iPhone, but definitely something that's going to be part of our community rugby program going forward, in being able to use videos to provide our coaches and our athletes with an opportunity to reflect back on what they're doing. And as Simon mentioned, to learn, improve, reflect, and plan. Thanks, guys.
I think it's really, really impressive what you and Simon showed us. I think what we take out of it is that intuitively we thought that COVID is going to put a hold on a lot of our coaching, but you guys have managed to take a step back and get a deeper macro point of view about the game and use it to your advantage. And you created a sort of community of practice, a more inclusive environment, and you're not at all disabled by this COVID situation or circuit breaker. It's really amazing. Do you guys foresee this approach being used by other team territorial-based sports? Can they use it as well?
That's for you, I think.
Okay, absolutely, Sham. I mean, I think the 21st century approach to learning is that students or whoever is involved in that learning continuum has an opportunity to look at what they're doing. In the past, where we have had discussions with coaches or referees about what they're doing, you're trying to use their own perception to create their learning. And what having video allows a coach or an athlete or a referee to do is to look back at what they've been doing in an objective manner without any form of bias, and use that as an opportunity for them to reflect on what they're doing and create their own learning pathway. I think the traditional approach has always been I tell, you do, whereas with this medium, being able to use this quality of image, it does change the learner focus, in that they are actually able to create their own learning journey and their own pathway.
Simon, you want to add on anything?
Well, I think Charlie summed that up, brilliantly, and it just bounces perfectly into our next. Just my last 5 minutes here. I'm on time at the moment, aren't I? And no one's going to hit across the knuckles. No, we're all right.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So we looked at, so I've touched on all the coaches ones very briefly, and I must say that I've been really impressed with the coaches and their work that they've been doing. But it's not just the fact they go away and they're in isolation. It's I'll sit down with them. We'll have our Zoom one-on-ones as I help them try to understand and draw out of them what their understanding is and their belief and their clarity on the rugby. So it takes, this is a long process before we get to each Monday evening session. But the presentations so far have all been high class, and I've had people sitting in from around the world and high-level coaches who've been very, very impressed with what we're doing. We had one evening with Michael Checker, the former Australian coach, and with Conrad Smith when they both discussed the final. Conrad Smith, All Black legend, two-time World Cup winner. So we're trying to bring in outside influence as well to even grow that experience even more. And so that's the coaches dealt with. Now, how are we dealing with the players? And as I say, COVID's given us this lockdown has given us time to realize, and for me personally, because I haven't been on the ground that long, to understand that our coaching is going to remain remote coaching. It's going to be a massive part of the future. Even when life gets back to whatever new normal looks like, we're never going to be in the situation currently until rugby goes professional or semi-professional, that I'm going to have the time to allow me 40 minutes in a meeting room as I would with my professional players, or an hour if I require it. So how do we communicate? And this comes back again to the Huddle Sports Code, and we're on the Huddle platform, filming trainings, filming images, and putting them up there for the athlete to look at his iPhone, to look at his iPads, whatever it is he uses. That platform allows him to view the images, sitting on the train, whatever it is. So at least we're getting them and we're connected with them thinking about rugby. And as Charlie mentioned, this is the way that our new generation are very much connected to, very much like to learn this way. So I'm going to take you an example here of just some of the work we've done with one of our young players, Gideon Key, who's went to the Raffles Institution School, 19 years of age, Singapore under-20s player, plays with the Bedok Club. And when he first arrived, because we had in this core group of players, we had about 4 or 5 players who were the young guys. And it was interesting to see his catch pass. So one of the basics of our game of rugby, and one of the very poor fundamentals I noticed here was I thought the catch pass was very weak. So just the ability to catch the ball early and make that transition and make that pass. Now, I'll show you the best in the world, okay? And so this is just an example. Is that video's on, isn't it? Yep, you got my screen? So I'll just take it back here. Okay, you can see this is Bowden Barrett for the All Blacks playing against England, semi-finals. And you've got that image okay? Are we all right? Cool. So you'll see just obviously where the ball's circled, where the hands are, how early the reception is. Again, I don't want to bore non-rugby people with the basics, but that's pretty much textbook. Allows an early transfer. The earlier we catch the ball gives us time. And we all know at the highest level, the game is faster, and time is what you're looking for. How much time do I have on the ball? Okay. So this one here, I'll just play that on. Okay. Next one again. Okay. Early reception. Just look at these passes where obviously where the ball's been taken, where the athlete is. Everything is flat, fast, and in front. Okay. Last one again. Okay. So that's if we're going to model ourselves on something, let's compare ourselves with the best. Okay. And in this case here, we've taken, and it's the same across the board with all these top international teams. This is the technique we're looking for. Okay. So if we take it on now, I'll just let this one run through, but you'll just see the quality of everything flat, fast, and in front. Okay, so now we've got Gideon here. And this is not difficult. We've set this up and filmed this with 2 fixed cameras, okay? And so what we have got is we've got two images that we can film them from, 2 angles. Okay, it's so good for analyzing, okay? I'm just going to concentrate on angle 1 here. And just so Gideon's arrived to training with us, okay? Let's have a look at how he goes. Okay, you see you get the idea where he's catching the ball. Okay, we just want to have a look. Here we go. This is a great kid with a great work ethic. But I'm seeing this and I'm going, wow, is this where we're at with our catch pass in Singapore? Is this what we're coaching at school level and junior level? Big problem for me. And now I'm getting this kid here who really wants to learn, wants to make his way in rugby and progress. And I've got to go right back to the basics. So I'm thinking, what are we coaching at junior level? What's going on? And so it was the first sort of alarm bells that sort of rung out here about this. And we'll just take it from the other side just to show you that it's not just a one-off. Okay. So you all got the idea on what's going on here and how he's taking the ball and things. So again, I'm not wanting to get too technical about it, but I'd much prefer we're catching the ball, we've got hands up and we've got our hands receiving that ball out here. So it allows a much easier transfer, okay? So then what we go to is we start to come to trainings 1 week later, okay? So Gideon's seen these images now. He's had the ideas on how we perceive what could be better. So this is his first week of training. It's the first evening session on the field that he's done, and he's going to be first receiver here, okay? I'll just set about 3 of these runs through. And we have a look where he's catching it now. Still pretty much the same, okay? So it's going to take a little bit of time for these ideas to be bed in here. Have a look. I think you'll agree with me. We're seeing a continuation on what we saw during his passing test a week earlier. But he's aware of it. And you see the coach was having a quiet chat with him there about it. See it again, okay? So to change habits, we all know, takes time. It takes repetition. And how many times has he touched the ball? But, you know, I was trying to get the players to touch the ball 300 or 400 times a week because we had to improve our catch pass. 1 week later, Gideon here is in black on this occasion here, okay? So again, this is just filmed, just to give you the idea. This is just one camera up on a tripod. No one's manning it. Let's have a look at how he goes here. And we're seeing this massive shift from the young guy. Now he's starting to understand it because he's been able to analyze all his trainings. I'm giving you, only a snapshot of them. And and now he's starting to really understand what the coaches are talking about with that reinforcement of good video work or good analysis and having the ability to be able to analyze and study himself. And there we go again. And you will notice, probably during this training session, that we are training with the women as well, and they've made massive inroads with their work as well. As I just see Gideon here kicking on, it's just a couple more. Sorry, as it jumps on me. And I truly believe that without our ability to interact remotely with the players and for them to see and understand, that I'm not sure we would have had such a shift so quickly from this young player here. And that's very encouraging from a coaching viewpoint. And now going forward is, how do we make this better? Because for me, this is not just a COVID issue. This is how our rugby is going to look like and how we're going to have to coach going forward in Singapore for the foreseeable future, that our ability to have quality images, to understand the images and to be able to pass that message on to the players to help them improve and have them part of that learning with their feedback as well. So look, that's that's where we're at. I know it's quite a lot of talk there, and I've jumped across a lot of things, but
I think it's really impressive what underpins
Thank you.
your whole approach and philosophy, that you managed to pick out like the idiosyncrasies of each player and point it out and allow him to think about it. And you made the connection between Gideon and a larger systemic problem, you know, that maybe the junior development needs to focus on certain aspects of the game from a technical point of view. It's amazing. And I really like what Charlie pointed out just now, that the athletes can actually use their handphone when they're traveling in the MRT to actually learn about their own game. So from a pragmatic point of view, a lot of our coaches and players may not even need to meet if their schedule makes it tough, but they can make an MRT ride a time for them to learn what is a mistake or a problem in their game.
Well, that's to me one of the biggest challenges in that Singapore rugby is confronted with is time and face time with the athletes. Singapore, I'm just talking from the rugby. I certainly don't know the other sports, their constraints, but the one that was just face time with the athletes. We were three sessions, 3 strength and conditioning skill sessions in the morning between 6 and 8 a.m. and 1 field session during the week, which I'd limit to an hour, because I wanted to be respectful that the clubs were the priority at this point in time. So your face time with the athlete is not a lot. So if we're going to lose half an hour explaining things, then we're not being effective as coaches. So this has been a real challenge for me, which has been great. I've really enjoyed it, trying to get this the remote learning going, but also it's now I see how we can make it work. And again, I've got to bring it back. It's having these great tools such as Huddle and Sports Code there to use. It's been great developing this with the coaches. It's an experience we've all really enjoyed. Or certainly, I have. The coaches might not have enjoyed it, but it's been something that's been really beneficial to me, and really teach me another way about coaching and about learning. So it's been, it's something going forward that, as Charlie said, we'll continue to build on. And I think every part of our community can take a lot out of what's been going on.
I think fundamentally this whole movement has made people realize the importance of reflecting and thinking about the game, and it's amazing, right? It's really sound from a pedagogical point of view, and I love the fact that you break things down and make the coaches realize that sometimes simple is better. Brian, shall we open up?
Yep, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, we're going to open up to Q&A session. We have gathered people who haven't posted their questions can post on the chat group. We actually have gathered a few questions who have posted on Facebook Live and on Zoom. These are the questions. So the first, I'm not sure, we can go, whoever, Charlie, DM or Simon, who's ready, you can just pick the questions. But these are the 5 questions that were posted during the Facebook Live or during the session when you were presenting or sharing. So the first question is, any advice that you can give to NSAs from other team sports about what they can do to keep their community active and in touch with their sport?
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump in on the first one first, and maybe Charlie, you can jump in after as well. I believe actually a lot of the NSAs has already started doing some form of Zoom trainings or like discussions, from what I've gathered and from my understanding. I think just maybe something to add on is if they can maybe research further into a particular sports software or system that will allow them to cut clips and be more efficient, and most importantly, more user-friendly for both the athlete and the coach. I think that's something maybe they can look into. And also while conducting these sessions, because you are online, obviously you need to still maintain that sort of attention from the participants. So I think it's really important for the leadership, both at a higher level and also at that session, perhaps to really emphasize on the why they're doing these things. And the sessions really need to add value to everyone involved. If not, then they may not want to come back. So I think these things are important. Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, I think as we said earlier, you know, we look at what we're going through as a nation at the moment, and it can be quite bleak in terms of an outlook for the future. But I think the important thing for all of us as a community, whether we're in a different sport or an athlete or a coach, is to look at this as an opportunity, and to see that having a period in time where nothing is going on and we're not moving forward, it gives us a really good opportunity for us to reflect on whether we've been doing things well and how we can then approach to things once life hopefully returns to normal. So yeah, a great opportunity to bring the community together, and to stand united as we go through a difficult time.
Yeah, I love that, man. Love that. That now we're
Excellent.
it's all the whole continuum, and not just the high performance, but the community and everybody involved. Thank you. I think the next few questions seems like it looks like it's for Simon, because when you say study the game and not watch it, what are some things we can look out for, especially in guiding secondary school students?
I'll encourage you to watch a game without watching the ball. But so by that, watch inside the ball, watch outside the ball. So when the ball comes out of a scrum, example, have a look and see what your forwards are doing. Who's doing what? Who's running? Who's walking? Who's really lazy? And just forget about those. Just forget about the over technical aspects and just see what your movement patterns look like. It's tough to do that when you're watching on TV, because we're limited to, as they call it, that camera one. You know, they'll focus on the ball, then sometimes it'll jump out wide, but you can still anticipate and try and start to then anticipate what you think may happen. Okay. And that way, you'll start to grow your understanding. If it's line outs you're interested in, okay, have a close look at the line out, look at the movement. Don't look at the hooker throwing the ball in, just try and follow the movement, who's doing what and why. If you're wanting to break down techniques, okay, and just take it back to the very, very basics. Ask questions, okay, and then have a look. I just talk about catch pass. Where is the player catching the ball? And I showed up the example, which I think is very clear with Gideon. And then so we watched that, and then we watched the highest level, and all of a sudden we say, well, hang on, why is Bowden Barrett catching the ball out here? Why are my players catching on their chest? Who's right? So try and take lessons from the top players that you observe, and try and apply them. And it can be done if we respect that ABCD process. So, those, if you don't understand the skill, you don't understand the technique, ask the question. And because there are a lot of people out there who've got it, and in Singapore in the rugby community, there's a lot of very good knowledge out there. And I think what we're trying to do is create is a more sharing atmosphere to allow people to tap into the wealth of knowledge that is here. So I hope that sort of answers those ones a little bit.
Yep. How about the next? Yep.
So basically, you're just saying that there are certain habits of mind that we need to develop in order to understand the game deeper, right? And I like how you're trying to move away from our intuition and not all, but rather the way people are spaced out in sort of a bird's eye point of view of the game.
Yeah, that's so important. I think what we want to try and change as well is maybe the experiences we had as players. And Charlie spoke about the way kids are learning today in this new generation, and generation Instagram, Snapchat, the rest of it. They're tough to deal with at the best of times. And I've had years of dealing with them over professional. These young kids who come straight out of school as 18-year-olds into a professional environment, and they want everything so quickly. And when you're trying to nurture them and develop. So, those are all those challenges there couple in with how we teach. And I think that's so important that we get our teaching right.
Excellent point. Brian, let me pick another question. I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, I think
I think question 5 is quite a good one, but Simon actually went through it. Maybe you can reiterate. What are some of the guiding questions in relation to tactical problems that we can use to guide observation and analysis? starting from general to specifics related to defense and offense. I think this person is asking about certain questions that can guide the process of the coaches and the athletes when you do technical analysis.
Yeah, I think, if there's any lesson that I can give, is that those types of wordy questions are the biggest problems we've probably got in itself. Is we're trying to complicate things here. Rugby remains sport's extremely simple. Repeat the basics. Do the basics very well. Just keep repackaging how you sell the basics to those players. I just saw something flash up that the youth get bored of doing basics, but I think if they see that the very best of the game are doing those basics the whole time, then they start to understand that, oh, well, maybe that is the way ahead. And, tactical problems, we can talk tactics when our technique's good. I don't want to talk about any tactical things in rugby until I know my players can catch and pass, run, catch and pass. Can you do that? When you can start doing that, we'll start talking about structures and everything else, and we start going into detail. But let us just make sure at every level that we're all passionate about coaching and we're all working at that. Just keep doing the basics. Never get bored of doing the basics. I keep bringing it back. The great players, and I've coached some of the greatest players in the world, okay? All they do is the basics very well. They run the same speed as everybody else. They lift the same amount of weights, well, maybe apart from guys like Jonah Lomu, who's slightly different. But they're all doing exactly the same, these players. But the ones who excel and make it to the high end are the guys who repeat the basics extremely well under pressure. And that means time and time again, they're just making the right decisions because their skill set, their toolbox of skills is full and they know what to do in that situation. So our challenge as coaches is how do we just keep putting the players in those same situations? Maintaining interest at training is having a competitive environment. Have fun. No standing around waiting in two lines because you've only got two balls for training. Have a ball for every individual. And that's, these are things here. Let's have such a competitive element at training. It is about winning and losing. Okay, you want to win at training. You want to beat the guy next to you, but you can have fun doing it. It's essentially, that's what it's all about. We want to have fun.
I think you're spot on. Basically, simple things that are even done at the highest level, and you managed to show us that when you showed us that All Blacks video clip. So I think a lot of the students will be stunned that these small, simple things are done at the highest level, and it can impact their game from a tactical and technical point of view as well. Excellent stuff. Brian?
I think we can have one last question. I think this question is open to Charlie, DM, or Simon, because how do you develop a common team identity and culture, especially among coaches, not just the national team coaches, but also tied through the system to school and grassroots coaches?
Charlie, DM, can we hear from you guys?
Yeah, DM, do you want to go first?
Maybe I'll go first. I think for me the key word is alignment.
Alignment, yeah.
I think in the past as an organization we've done a lot of good things from development, from national team, but most of the time it was in patches and not necessarily aligned. Actually, I mean, you guys should understand also we are under some sort of limited resource as an NSA in Singapore, who's not professional. So the better aligned we are, the more we can share resources, and the more sort of the flow between what the top is thinking and what the bottom is developing can be the same. And I think for me alignment is key.
Charlie?
Yeah, I would certainly agree with DM, and I think if we look at a process of how we achieve that, I think probably the biggest, most important thing is to establish communication means between coaches from different teams and identify what is the unique factor that identifies us all as a community. I know last week there was a discussion around competition and winning versus development, and certainly in a winning model, 50% will always lose. So that, as a culture of coaches, is probably not what's going to unify us. What can unify us is that we are trying to develop the athletes in whichever sport across the nation. And that can definitely be used to bring the community together. I'm a strong believer in that you're only ever as strong as your weakest opponent. And so if we raise the standard of how we're playing any sport as a nation, then we will achieve a collective goal.
Thanks, Charlie. So with this, I think we would like to thank Coach SG, like to thank Singapore Rugby, Simon, DM, and Charlie for really sharing the insights and what's happening in Singapore Rugby Union and really helping the coach ecosystem get better every day.